trick our computer into thinking that if I typed in myjoomlasite.com, and I do need to be careful of this, I wonder whether this is going to, oh, well, there you go, it is pretty much a standard landing page. I'm sure we've all seen these type of things before where a company's gone and, registered this domain name and not put any site next to it. So anyway, we're going to use this domain name as our testing domain name just for fun, and you'll see where I'm getting it in just a sec. So what we're going to do, we're going to go and open up a file called our host file. And you get your host file, and this really, well, this does apply to other platforms as well. Mac, you can do this, and Linux, but we're just going to focus on Windows in this tutorial. So we're going to go to windows.system32 / sorry, not dot, I should say / backslash drivers /etc enter, and we'll find a few little files here. I should point out this time, if you have some fancy big security suite on your computer, such as Semantic or something, you may find these files have been altered and or locked. If that's the case, you'll have to work out how to unlock them, but we're going to pretend that we can get to this. So we're just going to open that file, and we're going to choose npad2, open that, and here's the file. And it's a pretty boring, nondescript looking file. We can see here's these wonderful little comment marks again, and we have one lonely little entry. And that entry looks a bit familiar because 127.0.0.1 is in fact what we call the loopback address for our own network card. It's a way of discovering whether your network card exists or is reachable, but it's also our own, it's what we call our loopback address. And localhost is here. That's how your browser knows that when you typed in localhost before, it knows to just point back to your own network card. So we can have some fun with this. We can either just do it on the same line, or we can type in there again 127, and we'll do it just this way for purpose of clarity. And we'll just put a tab, and if we were to type in www.myjoomlasite.com, I think that's what we typed in before, and we were to save that. It was Joomla site, beg your pardon. We'll do my Joomla site. So now myjoomlasite.com, press enter. Actually, might just need to close the browser and oh look, I did a typo. You probably all saw me do that and laughed at me, you silly fool. Anyway, we'll put A there now, and it's good practice just to close your browser and open it again, because it just sometimes needs to do that to reload that host file. So www.myjoomlasite.com, and there we are, and it's pointing back at our WAMP server. Okay, so we've tricked our host file into telling our browser that when we type this in, it's actually going to point back to our local file. This is good if we're developing a site, so it might be a domain that's not yet developed, okay, or it might be something like that. This is the way I prefer to develop, so that when you are developing, particularly for links, or sometimes just for purpose of clarity, to use the actual domain. Sometimes I live in Australia, so a lot of the sites I develop are .com.au. Often I will do a dummy site if I'm rebuilding a new site, and I'll call it, it might be myaustralianwebsite.com.au, and I'll make it myaustralianwebsite.com just for purpose of clarity. Also, it looks nice when you're presenting it to a client on your laptop or whatever, that they can see that it is really their site. Okay, so we're not yet finished. So we now have tricked our computer into thinking that it exists here. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to go back to our root directory. I'm going to make another folder called My Joomla Site, and I also just like to give it the full domain, and I end up with a lot of folders in here. The computer I'm doing this recording on at the moment is a blank computer. It's not my real development computer. If it was, you'd see a whole bunch. You'd see probably 50 odd folders in here. So so my Joomla site, so we've put that in there, and I'm just going to again open that, and we'll just make a new text file called index.php, and I'll just open that up with the npad2, and again this is my Joomla site. That will do. So now if I go and hit it again, am I going to get it? And no, not quite. I've still got a bit to go. Okay, so what we need to do is to go back to our WAMP directory, back into the bin, Apache 2, conf, and extra, and this file we were talking about before, vhosts. The reason vhosts exists is vhosts allows a web server to serve out multiple different sites from a single location. Back in the dark old days of web serving, if you had a website, if you had more than one website at one server, you generally needed more than one IP address. And if it wasn't for this type of serving, we the world probably would have run out of IP addresses long ago. So this enables a web server on a single IP address to serve out multiple different websites based on where the query is coming from. In other words, the server says, you know, here comes a query from looking for my Joomla site versus my other Joomla site, and it knows how to shoot it off in two different directions to find the right file. So we're just going to go ahead and edit that, and we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and at the bottom of it, it basically gives you two dummies. So it's fine to leave the top one there, you don't have to, but you can just leave it there just as a purpose, a point of reference later on. The main two areas you need for this to work are the document root and the server name. So we can get rid of everything else except those two. So we're just going to go like that. So I also want you to take note that the slashes in this particular file go the wrong way to what you'd be used to. Normally you'd be used to that slash going that way. In a in this WAMP file, because it's Linux based, or pretending to be Linux based, it has to go that way. So that's one point of clarification. So I'm just going to highlight all that text in between the two quotation marks, and inside of document root we're going to type c:/WAMP/www/ and then the name of the folder that I put before, so my Joomla site.com. Okay, so that's the document root. Then here, the server name, we're going to type www.myjoomlasite.com. So what we're saying is, for this server, when it finds this request, it's going to go to that location. Okay, so we can close that, save it. It's also a good idea, in fact it's pretty much mandatory, to restart your WAMP server. So we can see that it started again. So now we go to my Joomla site. There we are. This is my Joomla site. So what we've now discovered is we can now have multiple sites on our WAMP server just by typing in a dummy or a predefined domain name. And we're just about ready for our Joomla installation.